Eden Energy Medicine is a combination of different modalities: traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic, Celtic, Native American, and it really takes old ancient tools and those modalities and puts them together. It's all based off of the 9 primary energy systems, and going in and balancing the meridians and then balancing the radiant circuits and chakras, each energy system, to give more direct treatment to long-term blockages, issues, ailments, and traumas.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. And I am so excited to introduce to you Rocksye Harris-Wyrick. She is a beautiful healer, and I can't wait to share her story and let her tell you all what she has and what she does. So Roxy, welcome.
Hello, thank you very much.
So thank you for being here. I'm so excited to have you explain a little bit about what you do. I want to tell you, everybody, a little bit about why I was interested in having Roxy on the show. My records, the Akashic Records, are always talking about cleaning and clearing up the mind, letting go of past emotional trauma, old belief systems, letting go of past patterns that have been ingrained within us, over centuries, and just in this lifetime or past lifetimes. And they constantly tell me and tell us that how important and significant it is they use the term clear the mind, but they're talking about living in a simplistic mind. And the more simplistic the mind is, the more that we can transition into a healthier way of being and be more connected to the universal consciousness and everything that is. And so beautiful Roxy has crossed my path numerous times, and she has such a magnificent story that I would love for her to share a little bit about her history and getting into healing modalities. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the types of modalities that you use to help others. So Roxy, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and getting into the healing arts?
Well, mine is a little bit more unique than most people. I have 2 parents that were already in this walk, so I was born into it. So I have awakening parts of my journey, but it's a bit different when you're born into it and your parents have done a lot of the bumps and scrapes along the way and educate you with common society, but you're not really in it. So I've had a different set of tasks to learn and understand because of my beginning. Born and raised in Oklahoma, and my father was born and raised here, but was traveled all over in his spiritual journey. And my mother was born in Missouri and started her spiritual journey deeper when she met my dad. And they came to Oklahoma. So spirituality has not been really accepted in Oklahoma until recently. I'd say probably the last 20 years is when I've noticed a huge shift. Goodness sakes, we're in 2024, so 24 years.
Yeah.
Around 2000 is when I noticed a huge shift of it's more accepted. It's not something I had to be real careful with, as much as I did growing up. So I came into this naturally. My father was a intuitive healer as well. My mother, both. So I remember being a teenager, and one of our friends said, "You have healing abilities with your hands," and I'm like, "Okay." I just thought they got hot at odd times, and I didn't think much of it. And that's why I have so much experience, because my mother was a Reiki Master already. And so I was getting my certification and everything at 19, 20 years old. So I was herbalism, energy healing, intuitive reading, all of that just has been a part of my life all along.
Mm-hmm. So did you always think that you were going to get into the healing industry?
No.
So how did that happen?
Frankly, and a bit traumatically, my dad passed away in the middle of my senior year. I was en route to be, I had a full ride, and I was going to be a teacher. I was double majoring in psychology and education.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the route I was going to do. I had wanted to be a teacher since I was about 5 or 6 years old. And my mother raising me in tune with the body and how to feel and be present in the body. Psychology was just a part of it. I was my friends called me, I got to come to you, Roxy, for help. Yeah, I was the little therapist already as a teenager. And then my dad passed away the middle of my senior year. And I call it, I was on the more mental path. And I saw what my parents had to go through. And I wasn't thinking about how much society was going to evolve. And I did not want to do that. And then my dad passed suddenly, and I was not about to leave my mother. And so my life took a totally different turn, and I wound up soon after starting a family. And I was focused on my kids and how to work with my child's energy. And so that took me inward immediately.
Mm. So when you're talking about going inward, what do you mean by that?
Paying closer attention. I always, from a young age, I remember seeing things and hearing things. And my dad's abilities were so booming and vivid because he was a very charismatic, out loud, yet compassionate person. He always told his stories as his inner voice was this loud, booming voice, very dramatic. And I just had this tiny little thing that I thought was just my thoughts. And so unbeknownst to him, I would ask him these different things about what I heard or saw. And he'd go, "Oh, that's just your imagination," not having any idea how much he was accidentally stifling me. And so I kind of shut it off. And then around 15, I had this knowing. We were traveling and I got accidentally left at a truck stop. But my inner voice kept telling me, "They're going to leave you. They're going to leave you." I'm like, "No, they're not. No, they're not." Well, I wound up 15 at a truck stop, and my parents were no longer in the parking lot. So I have this funny series of events of getting them to come back and finding help and everything like that. But I had these different steps along the way to show me that what I heard all along was that just my dad didn't understand that it didn't have to be booming and just like his. Mm. So losing my dad, I started to go inward and pay attention to that voice better. Well, since the incident when I was 15. But so I started hearing those subtleties, feeling them differently, and knowing that if my family is going to be ripped apart, when I'm 18 years old, I'm gonna be different, and I'm gonna feel different. Mm. So it took me inner to be able to hear my inner voice and tune into my abilities differently.
How old were you then? So 18, yeah. So that's a big deal, and being able to be at 18. And so when was that? Around what year?
1995.
Yeah. So you recognize that you didn't have a whole lot of support around you at that time. No. So that's just that in itself, and that knowing is it's kind of sorry. Well, it's to be honored because, apparently you had something in you that was speaking to you to honor that knowing of who you are and trusting those inner voices, because so many of us don't. I mean, gosh, be 60 years old and still not trust your inner voice. Yeah. So yeah, that's a big deal. So from that point, how did you get into, because I know you're a Reiki master as well. And so how did that door open to you and then lead into these other fabulous things that you do?
It's all been very organic. So I guess I would trace it to having my son at 21 and realizing that I wanted him to grow up as emotionally present as possible. And he had a lot of sensitivities from when I was carrying him. I was very aware of how he was reacting in my belly and how he was reacting to people once he was born. And so that really took me into the subtleties of energy flow. And so I don't know, I remember exactly when, but right around 2000 and I guess it would have been 99, 98, somewhere in there. My mom got her Reiki certification already, and then she started teaching. So I guess it was more around 2001. I started with mine, and so I was just always tuning in, always utilizing my inner source energy. Everything for me is heart centered. I was taught from an early age that everything, my heart spark is the connection to source and universe. It's not externally and outward. So I was using that with him. I was using that with my friends' kids. I was using that in my business, my work. I was just a regular career person at that point. And so it's all about tuning in, listening to those subtleties, being able to differentiate between the mind, or actually I call it the brain, and your inner voice, and being able to find that neutral space, which I usually refer to as the mind, which is the balance between those two worlds.
Yeah. So then whenever you started trusting that, would you call it a heart spark?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that term, heart spark.
The inner source spark.
Yeah. So then you started doing Reiki, and then you had another modality that came across your path. It's called the Eden Energy Medicine. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. In 2015, I was really feeling that there was something else. I knew Reiki was amazing. I was only using it in casual situations. I did not go into this as a profession until 2018. And so a good friend of ours, longtime friend of ours, started telling me about Eden Energy Medicine, and she was a certified practitioner. And so I was like, wait a minute, what is this? I'm like, I'm born and raised in this, and I've never heard of this. And she's like, well, it's much more prevalent on the East and West Coast, like most things, but it is worldwide as well. And I'm an Eden Energy Medicine certified practitioner. So I started that journey when I realized that it took it. A lot of times I call it gives Reiki a roadmap. Reiki is wonderful and powerful, and but I knew that there was more I could do with it, instead of just feeling the energy, trusting the energy, focusing the energy. Eden Energy Medicine is a combination of different modalities: traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic, Celtic, Native American, and it really takes old ancient tools and those modalities and puts them together with, I got to figure out which side's which, lovely Meridian man. And because we have these meridian channels in our body. And so it's all based off of the 9 primary energy systems, and going in and balancing the meridians, and then balancing the radiant circuits and chakras, each energy system, to give more direct treatment to long-term blockages, issues, ailments, and traumas.
Okay, so now I'm curious, because I'm not familiar with it. and this isn't the first time, but talking to you is the first time that I've actually heard of this practice. So can you give a little bit of a history about it? How did it evolve? How long has it been around?
It has been, well, Donna Eden is the founder, and she was born being able to see energy in people. And she developed a series of serious ailments young in life. And she was guided how to help heal herself. And then as she had kids and started maneuvering the world on her own, she realized that all of these modalities that she knew and birthed out of her, she thought, was actually parts of all of these old ancient traditions that had been, our way of life when we all lived tribally. It doesn't matter the color of our skin. Even if you go to Celtic, Eastern European, we all lived tribally. Yeah. And so we all had a way of being in touch with our bodies and in touch with the nature and the planet. And so they fell away as we got more into regular society. Mm-hmm. And so she realized that as she was studying and learning, that all of these things that she was guided to were parts of traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, Celtic, and Native American, all different pieces of the pie put together. So around, if I remember correctly, around the 70s, she started teaching this in Oregon and in her area, side of the West Coast. And then it became a standard worldwide curriculum. I believe, I want to say around 2004, 2005.
Okay.
But that's not something that I keep memorized.
So, yeah, this shouldn't be a test, right? Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, that's fine. I don't want one of my colleagues to see this and go, "Oh, she's 10 years off." Like, I very well may be. And that's not part of our certification program. Yeah. But she started teaching people all over the West Coast, East Coast, worldwide. And now we're all over the world, and we work with helping remove blockages and clear the body to restore balance. Mm-hmm. And most importantly, we are helping guide people to jumpstart their own energy flow in their own body. I don't have anything that another person doesn't have. And it's just teaching people how to return to the connection with their body, understand the language that their body speaks, and help them birth their own healing modalities within themselves.
Okay. So what's the objective? And so, meaning we already know that it balances the energy. So an energy balance or imbalance can affect us physically, mentally, and emotionally. So can you kind of narrow down or be more specific on the different types of things that this could assist?
Everything. I know that sounds ultra simplistic, but one of the examples that I like to give is all the meridian pathways in our body are energy highways. And what happens when we're driving down the highway and we hit a traffic jam? Everything stops. If you stayed there and they didn't clear the traffic jam, what would happen to you? I mean, you would run out of food, you'd run out of fuel, you'd run out of all these things. So when you have energy blockages in your body, things don't flow. So whenever your energy pathways, you are in tune with them and you are working cooperatively with them, and you have resources to know how to reset emotional traumas and physical traumas and blockages in our body and keep it grounded and keep your energies flowing, everything is fed. Our meridians feed all of our organs and energy systems in our body. So if there is a blockage in them, that's the beginning of deterioration or ailments.
Yeah.
So if it's not flowing, we're not going. And so it helps everything from our ability to have joy all the way to neurodiversity. My daughter is ADHD, and so that really sent me on this deeper path around 2015, like I was talking about, is I knew that it was energy. I knew that it was food. I knew that it was environment, but it manifests in the diagnosis of ADHD. And so how can I work with that? How can I help her function as well as possible? Clearing on all levels. That's why my business is mind, body, spirit, is because I work with the emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical layers of the body to help people function as well as possible without as many interventions as they choose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wanted to just touch on the meridians just a little bit more because, my understanding is that, traditional Chinese medicine, and where, if you go back through history and how long the meridian system has been around, my gosh, forever. And
Yeah.
and like you, I'm not a historian. I can't document, all the dates. But, I do encourage anybody that really wants to understand the energy flows of our body to go back and look at the meridian system. And there's so many different ways that we can treat the meridian system. Acupuncture, number one way, but there's also shiatsu, which we can do, in different forms of Qigong and Tai Chi affect the meridians in different ways. So in the way that you use the meridians, how do you treat that?
It's everything as simple as just touch and flow, knowing which way, as to holding points. Because acupuncture uses needles on the very same acupressure points in the body that I utilize. Mm-hmm. I will hold points, strengthening, sedating. I will clear them with crystals. And it's all about breaking up the blockage that's there. Mm-hmm. And it's basically a trapped ball of energy that gets more and more stuck, stagnant, and becomes a constant way of life until you help reset your body. So it's the very same points. It's just what you use with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, if people want to do their own research, to study those meridian systems and really look at how in depth they are and how they affect us, and again, it's not just physically, it's emotionally as well. And they're huge. It's a big part of our physical bodies. So one of the other things that you had mentioned is the emotion code. And I've heard of the emotion code, but I'm not real familiar with what it is. So can you kind of go into some more details about that?
Emotion code is a process, a modality developed by a chiropractor years ago, and I don't have his information as memorized as partially do Donna Eden's. But he goes in with muscle testing to check the genetics in the body and work with the trauma release in the genetics to reset that muscle or energy system. And I learned at the hand of my muscle testing herbal nutritionalist from, I started seeing her, I think, at 15. But she became an emotion code certified, I don't know what her title was, in somewhere around probably 95 or 96, I want to say. And so I spent 10 years studying with her on that. I am not a technically certified emotion code person, but I use it a little bit differently. So I use it in combination with Eden Energy Medicine because I know emotional trauma is at the root of most everything.
Yeah.
We even have, Western studies talking about the emotional trauma, and it's the seat of blockages. Mm-hmm. So I use the emotion code going in with the genetic identification on the trauma that has been trapped there. What wasn't allowed to have a voice, what was traumatized, terrorized, whatever, identify that and go in and utilize forgiveness, prayer, atonement with that, as well as the polarity release along the spine. Okay. So traditional emotion code is you identify the blockage, track down the mother father's genetics, and they use a magnet roller on the spine.
Okay.
I go in and utilize what in Eden Energy Medicine is called the Quickie Energy Balancer. And so I'm doing the cervical spinal fluid release along the spine, which works with the polarity, as well as other things in Eden Energy Medicine that resets polarity in the body.
Okay. So I think we might have gotten, it's okay. We might have gotten over some people's heads. So no, yeah. So with that being said, gosh, there's so much involved in the emotion code. Number one, let's go back to emotions, the main factor. A lot of people don't recognize that when we go through an event, it can be something like something that created fear.
Yes.
And this emotion fear can get embedded within our cellular structure, within the physical being. And once it does that, it creates a weak spot. And so once we have this weak spot due to an emotion, it's more susceptible to disease, to injury, illness, whatever it may be that's affecting this weak spot. And which goes back again to the Meridian system and the access of energy, or what is it? Depletion. Too little or too much is what I'm trying to say. Excessive. That's what I'm trying to say. I can't get the words right. But, a lot of people don't realize how these emotions that we have every day can literally affect our bodies. And a lot of us are used to that term dis-ease. But people that have never heard that term before don't recognize that jealousy, judgment, fear, criticism, all of these different things that we basically do a lot of these things on a daily basis and don't even recognize how these things can really truly affect us physically and mentally or emotionally.
Exactly.
And so what your objective is to go in and break those emotions up is that how you do it?
Yeah, basically, I go in and find that blockage. And then I will identify the genetics involved and the spiritual genetics involved. And then we root out the base feelings, because most everything roots back to fear, love, jealousy, hate, anger, judgment. It all boils back down to base root emotions and what wasn't allowed to be felt in that present moment, either due to survival or because we have been taught not to be present in our bodies with emotion. Mm-hmm. So I see them as, big balls of energy, and then it gets smaller and smaller, and we work our way down to what I'm calling a seed. And the seed, I can see it like embedded in the body. Like if you have, a burn on your skin, and you have this top layer, first, second, and third degree burns, is how low it goes into that tissue. So if you have a trapped emotion that's just, more surface, it's very easy to clear. But there's more layers and more layers. The deeper it sits in there longer, or, if it's 10, 20, 50 generations back, it's deeply embedded in there, and it creates a circular pattern of trying to get us to go back and learn that lesson, give healing to that issue. Mm-hmm. And so it's deeply embedded in there, and we have no earthly idea why we're afraid of whatever. Mm-hmm. And going in and working on those layers when a person is ready. And I don't ever go further than a person's ready. Just because I can see it there does not mean that they're ready to go there.
Right.
So we slowly work through the different layers, pulling those onion peel layers back to get to that. And then they're just suddenly, oh my gosh, I feel like I can breathe. Mm-hmm. I've got weight that I didn't realize I had on me. I feel so much better. I feel more alive. I can actually be fun. I can be silly instead of this drudgery and depression that can weigh on people. And they don't know where it came from.
Exactly. You can't identify it because you just don't know what that feeling is. You said something that I want to go back to, and you talked about, something maybe 30 generations back. A lot of people don't know about generational trauma. So could you explain that?
Generational trauma is, like you were describing, it sticks in your body, it sticks in your skin, it sticks in your meridians. So, for example, let's take kidney meridian. Kidney meridian and kidneys a lot of times hold fear. So if 30 generations back, your grandparent, I'm not going to go with how many grandparents that would be, 30 generations.
A lot.
Your grandparent was, terrified coming over, the ocean from Europe on however their journey was on boat, and they became traumatized by water. And you have no earthly idea why. Great-great-grandma was terrified of water. Great-great-grandpa was terrified. However it's passed down, you have this genetic trauma that sticks in that meridian, it sticks in that tissue in the body, and you have no earthly idea why you don't want to swim. You want to swim with all your friends, but you're traumatized. And it's not always that obvious. I'm just using a very obvious example of how that genetic trauma is passed down because that person couldn't deal with it. And the next one, it was either subconsciously passed on or it's just asleep in those genetics. Mm-hmm. And you basically have indebted traumas. Mm-hmm. They have been passed down to you. You have no control over, yet you are living out the current life. And that's what's speaking in your tissue.
Yeah. And that can form our personalities. It can form how we view things. It can form our behaviors, so many different things that we don't recognize. And I'm going to throw it because of my background, because of the Akashic Records, not only generational, literally the grandparents, the great grandparents, and going back that way, the physical generational, but also your past life generations can also be embedded within these energy fields that can show up in your current life as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Basic emotion code deals with just the mother-father genetics. Mm-hmm. I throw in spiritual genetics because of my background, because of what I know is there. I am perfectly capable and happy to deal with a client wherever they are, mm-hmm. if they believe in them or not. And because emotion code just on the physical level is so releasing, I don't have any issues with where a client is. Mm-hmm. But yes, my preference is to throw in the spiritual genetics, which makes a huge difference because we haven't always been in this skin.
Right. You also mentioned something which we don't have a whole lot of time, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but you also mentioned muscle testing, which yes. is one of my favorites. I love muscle testing. Can you give a really quick rundown just so people have something, they can hear something that they may not have heard before about what it is?
Muscle testing is how you can utilize literally the muscles in your arm, hand, arm or hand primarily, to bypass your brain and talk directly with your body. And so you can go into what you need to take for a certain ailment. But I mean, that's when I learned with my muscle testing herbalist nutritionist, she catered everything that she treated clients with off of muscle testing sheet for what they were clearing in their body, working layer by layer of whether or not it was viral, bacterial, parasite, anything like that. And so you can use muscle testing with your fingers, with an arm. Traditionally, kinesiology, like emotion code, they use the arm this way. Mm-hmm. I use it this way. Some people use this. There's all different ways that you do it. I do need to say, as an Eden Energy Medicine Certified Practitioner, I also do body energy testing, where we isolate that meridian, the muscle for that meridian, and test it for the body. Because there is a chance when you are doing muscle testing, if you are not experienced enough and neutral enough, that you are testing from triple warmer which is the meridian that governs fight, flight, or freeze, which is more from the fear response, mental brain aspect of the body. You have to have somebody that is experienced enough to know how to be in their neutral space. When you do energy body testing, you are talking directly to that muscle, whether or not this arm will move in the said pattern to isolate that muscle. So you're completely bypassing the brain and triple warmer. So, well, you have to get triple warmer calmed down to be able to do the body muscle testing, so body energy testing.
Yeah.
So I do both.
Yeah. So I wanted to jump into muscle testing because there's a lot more to it than what we just described in that. And basically it's used to determine you can use it to determine if you're allergic to a food. Yes. What food weakens you, what food gives you strength. You can focus on a body part, an organ, a disease, or whatever it is. And there's a technique to do all of this. This is just a very brief overview. But I always think it's important for people to get educated and be able to read your body. I think one of the things that humans have gotten so far away from is really being able to understand that your body will tell you everything that's happening in it. We are created to know when something is off. Yes. And how we react to certain things. We have iridology, reading the irises of your eyes, all of these different techniques in traditional Chinese medicine, looking at your tongue, looking at the ears, looking at the different color discolorization, understanding these energy flows. Your body will speak to you if you know how to listen to it and see the signals and see the signs and pay attention. And so with muscle testing, this is another way that your body will speak to you, so that it can help you guide yourself, have others guide you through what's happening so that you know how to remedy the situation. So, yeah that's my little plug.
Oh, yeah. One of the easiest things that your body doesn't lie as long as you allow it to relax is using your body as a pendulum. Yeah. So you hold that food or that supplement in front of you and gauge whether or not you just slightly shift forward or slightly shift back. And that's one of the easiest ways that I empower clients with, or just anybody with, paying attention to what how food affects your body.
Yeah. And so we read so many books and we just assume and we guess, I need to stop eating gluten, or I need to stop eating wheat, or I need to stop eating spinach, because somebody said, and I'm falling in the symptoms. Okay, well, let's narrow this down. Let's be more specific and really figure out what's going on instead of reading a book. Or not that books are not bad. You just need to know what's being said and seeing how it really truly is affecting you, and not just fall into what everybody else is saying.
Yeah, precisely. You have to have that moment to stop and feel. Feel into it, research some more. Could it be you? Could it not? There's so many layers at play. That initial hit of what you heard or read is that spark to get you to tune in. And are you going to listen to your body? Are you going to feel into what your body's trying to lead you, the journey it's trying to lead you on to find your relief?
Right. So, okay. So the other thing that, I kind of like to touch into, because of what you talked about, just everything that you're doing, between the Reiki and the work that you're doing with the muscle testing and that stuff, and then the Meridian stuff, it's all coming back to energy. And so when we talk about energy medicine, what is energy medicine?
Energy medicine is activating your own universal given rights to tune in and work with the energy flow in your body. Understanding meridians, you help understand where it comes from. But energy medicine is activating those pathways within your own body to work with energy flow and be conscious of what's flowing in and out of you and how you can direct it.
So, if somebody wanted to learn more about energy medicine, are there books available to talk about?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Because I think people need resources. What you're talking about is so in depth, and we are just scratching the surface on what all of this work is. And there's so many different modalities that cover what we're talking about. And so I want to encourage people to learn a little bit more about the signs of our body and how we can remedy situations that may not be with the traditional Western medicine. Because I know that most of the people that are watching this are looking for different ways. They're looking for a more natural lifestyle and how to become more in balance in a more natural way instead of using pharmaceuticals. And so these ideas and these concepts are just a door to open to create a path for all of our listeners to start searching and finding the answers for themselves. So the other thing that you do that I think is really interesting that I haven't even heard of before is crystal spinning. When you had mentioned that, I was like, excuse me, what? I want to know more.
Well, yeah, it's very, very simple. Crystals and stones, gemstones, they help. They have the energy of the planet, and they can help support clearing and moving energy in our body. And so, crystal spinning is just as simple as what we're talking about. I meant to have my little bag here. I don't think I have any crystals within reach. But Eden Energy Medicine really, really focuses on that. And I have a special pendulum crystal that's double-sided. And whenever you have a meridian blockage, you are, there's, like I said, this pocket of energy that's just stuck there. And the whole point is to just disturb it and getting it moving again. So it doesn't have to be a beautiful quartz crystal, of the earth that's amazing, and I have plenty of them all over my house. But just the glass prism, the facets on, just like if you have a piece of a glass in your window and it makes the rainbow from the sun, that distortion is what we want. We want that all the faces to create this new energy flow in the body. So you're literally spinning that crystal in that blockage and helping it break apart and disrupt and restore flow to the meridian or that chakra or area in the body.
So when you're talking about that, so I totally understand what you're saying. But if you have, how do stones help you heal besides, can we go into that? Well, I'm kind of getting you off the track, but yeah.
No, not at all.
Because, we're so many of us, are pick up a stone. I want an amethyst. I want labradorite. I want whatever it may be because it has a vibration. And usually that vibration interacts with our vibration. So can you talk a little bit about that kind of healing?
The stones have their own innate energy and elemental structure and frequency vibration. And I work with the frequency vibration primarily, if you want to break it all down to circuitry and frequency vibration. So that stone has its own energy that it has. And I use that to support that section of the body, and then go in and with emotion code and crystal spinning, help reset that. And that's one reason why there's so many different aspects to my practice, because if we just use that stone just statically there, or even if we're, holding it, that only gets a certain set of layers. When we add in the Eden Energy Medicine, or we add in the emotion code, then we go deeper and we go further and we get more to the root of that. So that's why I have so many different modalities that I utilize, because when you merge them all together, then you get the multi-layered aspect. And so just like, traditional Western medicine, if we just treat the body for that issue and don't do anything with the emotional, mental, and spiritual layers, all you've done is excavate that one section. You've got these other three, and that's why the issues come back. So you have to get the next set of issues within each layer to work on that. So the crystals are a big elemental frequency for our body, but they need the others merged with it to get to where you want for the long-term reset.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I have so many questions I want to ask about that. You're really, gosh, I wish I had 3 hours to talk to you, because this is multidimensional. And again, we're just scratching the surface. So going back to something like Reiki, and because you are a Reiki practitioner, but you have all of these other fabulous little tools that are you bring in to what you do. When we talk about Reiki, because Reiki is a pretty common energy modality. First of all, let's talk little bit about what Reiki is. Can you give a little bit of the concept of Reiki for people that haven't ever heard of it or don't really know what it is when we talk about it?
The concept of Reiki is using the energy that flows in your hands and from your being. You're pulling in energy, or you're activating it from within yourself and using it to direct at an issue or problem in the body. So you're tuning into the body and utilizing your energy flow to help a person, help your own body or help someone outside of your body.
Okay, so if you have the basic understanding of what Reiki is, how do you? And I'm using this, is it against the rules if you throw anything else in with Reiki? Can you use parts of Reiki and mix it in with a different modality? How do you use it?
Well, how do I use it, or how does a person use it?
Well, we're going to ask you first and then ask how a person uses it.
Because I can go off on a multi-layer explanation.
Yeah.
But I use it with the Meridian flows with each primary energy system, is using it to go in and help support the movement of that. So I'm either using it with holding points, where it's just coming out of my fingertips, or I am spinning with the vortex and resetting the flow, dealing with pain, dealing with vortexes, dealing with rips, holes, and tears in the aura. I utilize it in many different ways to help jumpstart that energy flow out of the person's body and reset and start beginning to heal the flow that has been blocked in there.
Okay, you just said something else.
I almost didn't say it because I knew it.
So are we thinking the same thing about the rips and the aura?
Yes.
Yeah. Because, and again, this is something that not everybody may understand. And so you just brought it up. So
I did. I almost caught myself, but I felt to say it. So
well, we said we were going with the flow. So let's go with the flow. So number one, let's just do something very basic. Okay. So explain what the aura is for people that may not know.
The aura is your energy field around your body. And a lot of times I explain it like if you want to look at an astronaut, they've got a little spacesuit around them to protect them from the, energy in space. And so we have an invisible shield around our body. And it has, at least depending on who you subscribe to, if you want to call it that, Eden Energy Medicine, it has 12 different layers to it. So when do I stop there? Or do you want me to?
No,
How
actually,
you get a rip.
yeah, I do want to talk about it because, again, it's maybe something that people haven't heard of before. And, it is a part of, with different energy modalities, healing touch is one that deals with the aura too. And so I do think that it'd be something good to discuss.
Yeah, Reiki deals with it, healing touch. Every energy modality deals with the aura because it is everything external is a reflection of internal. And so when we have an emotional trauma, when we have a physical trauma, it affects our little energy bubble. And so when we have that trauma, it affects the aura, and you can get a rip, hole, or tear in your auric layer. And then, if you want to think of it just like the spacesuit, what happens if you get a rip in the spacesuit? Then you start venting your oxygen, your energy is flowing out that hole, and the external is coming in that hole. So that's another reason why we have feelings that we have no earthly idea where they come from, issues that we never expected we're dealing with, because there's a whole world of frequency and circuitry out here that is beyond our 3D vision that is affecting us. Just like the cell phone waves, they're there. We don't understand how we can talk to somebody on the cell phone, but they're there. Yeah. We don't understand how radio waves come through. Well, if you're a scientist, you do. I'm talking about regular old people.
You and me.
I'm just saying this is another level when you're getting into physics and quantum physics and all of that level of energy flow.
Yeah, but it is something to be aware of. Again, if you've never heard about it, then it's a good thing to know. So, okay, so we've covered quite a few different modalities here, and so coming back to the Eden Energy Medicine. So, who do you think would benefit the most from this specific modality, the Eden medicine?
Again, it's everybody. It sounds ultra simplistic, but all of us need to understand the flow in our body. All of us benefit from all of our meridians flowing. That, when we're having those wonderful, energized, fabulous days, our joy generators are going and our meridians are flowing and we have minimal blockage and backup. When we have those off days where it just feels like, I just cannot turn the crank enough to have any flow, we have a serious reset that needs to go on with our meridians. And it is something, this is our basic polarity and biology of our body.
So you said a word that I really am excited about, the joy generator. We need to remember the joy generator because we need to be in joy. We need to live in joy. And, that's what we're moving towards. Mm-hmm. And, just for people to understand what the fifth dimension is all about and what we're moving from this heavy, dense energy that's within our body and mm-hmm. surrounding us into this fifth dimensional energy, which is a super high vibration, which is surrounding us and which is beginning to penetrate us. When we're talking about letting go of all of these emotions that are embedded within our body and these energy flowing and everything, making sure that the meridians are balanced and, that our aura is full and blooming and we are in balance exactly as we should be. And these energy emotions or the emotional energies that have been embedded in our bodies due to our experiences, once they get removed, and we can be in perfect balance, then there is no such thing as disease. And our body is vibrating in a way and it's functioning in a way in which it was truly meant to do. And, again, going back to these things that we keep talking, that I mentioned earlier about, the universe, God, creator, whoever you want to call who we are, created us at the beginning of time, gave us all of these gifts and all of these things to figure out when we're out of balance or when there's something that's not functioning correctly. And it's all within us. or on us, however you want to look at it. And so by being able to eliminate these dysfunctions, it also eliminates our emotional upheaval.
Yes.
It takes away our sadness. It takes away that attachment to things, these things that cause us to feel heavy. And I'm going to just use the term depressed, but not joyful.
Right.
So much of that has to do with being out of balance, that the point of this conversation with you and why I wanted to share these different modalities that you use in your specific gifts is so that people could see and understand that there's so much more to who we are as human beings, and that we can create that balance, and we can live in this place of joy. And it has to do with allowing ourselves to understand how to let go of what we've been so conditioned to hold on to.
Right.
And so thank you for sharing your information and being here for us today. I did want to throw in one other thing. One of the last questions that you had mentioned was, what is the effect of Eden Energy Medicine on those who are on the neurodivergent spectrum? Mm-hmm. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I do. I do want to. It ties into a little bit of what you just said, so I want to address that as well. Is one thing that I'm always helping people understand is finding our joy, finding the peace that we want is a journey, and so there is no. To me, there is no perfect space. There's no perfectness. We always have the ebbs and flows. It's just when we get into, and a lot of times I call it excavating, these layers that we have in our body layers, we find we have less of the highs and lows. We get more into that joy state here in the middle. But a lot of times people come to me and they just want to be happy all the time. They want to be in that. And I'm like, no, we have been in this, or this skin has existed how long? There's lots of layers to go through, and there are. It's a journey. It's not a destination. Mm-hmm. It's a journey, and we have to appreciate the highs and lows, embrace the sadness, but move through it.
Yeah.
Live in that joy as much as we can, but not be afraid of the other levels, the other emotions that we've been conditioned not to have. Mm-hmm. So, and a lot of times with neurodivergent people, there's so many highs and lows because of the exposure to toxins, because of the genetics, because of the energy blockages. And it's a multi-layered journey to go in and support the nutritional systems in the body, support the energy systems, and as well as the emotions. And most of them have no idea how to be grounded. Most of us, doesn't matter whether you're neurodivergent or not, grounding is your basic polarity of your body. Yeah. And so that topic is a hot button right now. And it's not just having our feet on the ground more without shoes. It is also the polarity flow in our body, because we are energetic beings. And so neurodivergent people, this is especially helpful for, because our energies are not crossing over. And our energies, in order to have that balance, to have that release, that reset, our energies have to cross over through our body. Mm-hmm. And so I worked with special needs for quite a while, as well as my daughter. And the energy does not flow from one side. It sticks. And so when you're learning how to feel your body, teaching it, it's okay to have those feelings and helping it move through them, that's when you get through a lot of blockages and can feel more like yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that we're very blessed, loved, have people like you on our earth, and are able to see and understand different ways that we can function, that I always talk about. It's what the eyes can't see,
right?
It's understanding what we're all consistent of, and which is energy. And so I want to thank you for being my guest and being here and sharing your knowledge and wisdom. I'm truly grateful. And thank you for being who you are. And for you guys, I will see you guys the next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I loved it.
Thank you.